So the first one of these is systems immersion. This can be used to describe when players are deeply engaged in mechanics, challenges, and rules of the game, and is similar to a state of flow. Um, so I don't know if people are familiar on this stream with the idea of flow, but you probably have an idea what that's meant. But it actually comes from this this guy, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. My pronunciation is not particularly perfect on his surname, I'm afraid. But hopefully you can understand close
It's a
enough.
complicated one.
It's not the easiest, I have to say.
Yeah.
So he had this idea that essentially flow is characterized in many ways by what we were talking about before, like lack of space, like you lose sense of where you are, you lose sense of time, you become fully engaged in an activity. And he had this idea that if you draw a graph, you've got difficulty on one axis of this, and how good you are at the activity on the other side of the axis. If a person's going to be like, there's this like diagonal line in the middle, there's this diagonal area in this graph in the middle, that if you stay in this perfect balance of it's just hard enough, not too hard, and you'll get better at it, but then it gets harder, and it gets better at it, it gets harder, and you stay in this like this kind of golden zone. That is considered the flow state, where the challenge and your mastery are kept in a really healthy balance, and the game or the activity continues to be engaging. He also said that basically if for example, the mastery gets too hard and your skills have not developed enough, then it becomes frustrating. You get this kind of big triangle of frustration over here. And in it lower down, if your mastery of the activity becomes very advanced, but the challenge doesn't escalate, then it becomes boring. That was the idea of flow. Since writing this paper, I did write this a couple of years ago. I've also been thinking further about this because there was always this little thing in my head that I think flow is partly systems immersion. You're immersed in the systems of the game. You're interested in the balance of how the AI works and how your movement respond to this. And maybe you've just like got really, really good at the timing of the pitching or the strategy of how to move your objects around it. You get really involved in the systems. But I think there's another version of this, because there was always something in my head going, this doesn't feel entirely like it. And I think what there is also kind of a counterpoint to flow, which I'm calling for the moment just ritual. Doing a ritual, doing something again and again and again in a way that you find soothing or helpful or beneficial to you. So think of something like Animal Crossing kind of games, or games where you just have to click to keep on digging a hole deeper or something like that. Games where there's no challenge, there's no sense of mastery, there's no difficulty, there's no timers, but it's incredibly engaging. It's soothing to perform that activity. That's not flow, but I think it's still systems immersion.
Yeah, I interpreted flow a little bit like meditative playing. So you become one with the system, and so it flows out of you. Let's go to the examples. I think with them I can explain these examples a little bit better. So of course my examples, and there are a lot of more of games, and there are many games you could add to this. So if you like, put it in the chat. The first game I experienced with this kind of flow was Tetris. I never owned a console till the Nintendo DS. So this was the Game Boy from my sister, and we had a pinboard in our kitchen, and every family member had the high score of Tetris on this pinboard, and we were always trying to break the high score of each other. So after a while, you get into this meditative, flowing state where when you start thinking about what you will do next, then you lose. So you just let it flow. You let your instincts or whatever flow, and the bricks and stuff fall into place by itself. and then you can get to the high score. So that was, I think, the first game with this flow or this system immersion.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I completely get that. I think that's a great example of it. To go for a similar one, columns.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got kind of a match three puzzler-ish,
Yeah.
like a very early one on the Mega Drive. I can tell you that the columns on the Mega Drive stops at level 199 and doesn't go any further after that. You can keep on playing as long as you like. It doesn't go beyond level 199, and it is impossibly fast at level 199.
Yeah.
But somehow I got there twice. I managed to play to that point twice in that game. And yeah, if you kind of blink at the wrong time, you're out of the game. And on a normal average basis, I would never be able to get there. But when your mind is so engaged with that system and just the movement, you're not thinking about what your fingers are doing. You're not really thinking about the colors and where to go. You're feeling connected to that system. Absolutely, this is that experience, definitely.
Yeah, right. And the next game, it wasn't Guitar Hero for PlayStation. I had another Guitar Hero. I don't know, but I come from a very musical family, and I think I could play a lot of music instruments. Of course, I can play guitar. And when you play music with alone or with others, you also get into the flow, into this meditative state, because essentially, if you're playing a guitar or some other game with deep system immersion, for me it's the same. So basically, when you get into this flow, you stop thinking about notes, you stop thinking about harmonics, you stop thinking about how to grip a note or a chord or something like that. You just let go and play. And that's the same with all the music games. You can add Rocksmith, you can Rock Band, and all the other derivatives for it too. But for me, it's Guitar Hero. When you go into the flow, you can give in and just run with it. Take it and run with it. It's so fun. It's so relaxing. It's freeing. After an hour of playing, I'm sweating, but I'm happy and really relaxed after that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think any rhythm action game I think really works like this. Another way, I think the like Pac-Man, I think, is also a classic example of this kind of flow gameplay where
Yeah.
if you think
Probably
about it
many of the early arcade games, right?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, well, a lot of them they were fairly light on narrative setting. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way. And so it was very much about becoming engaged with those systems that were developed within that, and they were very carefully balanced to be beatable, but only beatable if you got extremely good at it. And that was how they attracted people to the cabinets, because if there was somebody there who was getting a high score, that was an attraction in itself, and then other people would try to get that, but they'd only get that if they were in the zone of playing that. So yeah, I think these kind of games where you just have to embrace the system, yeah, very much that kind of game.
And the last one is a tricky one, because we come back to this. The first time I played Doom was more about the I don't want to spoil about another kind or category of immersion. But when you got into 20, 30, 40 hours of playing Doom, then you get into the systems. You know the map. You know every obstacle in the map. You know every enemy. And when you play with a friend about timing and high score and get into a competitive state, then this Doom just flows. You can play it with your eyes shut. I can probably not anymore. But back then I could play with my eyes shut through the first levels of Doom and never miss an enemy. So we got into this really deep, immersive state into Doom, and we could just play through it on a high difficulty. And but that came later. So we talk about it in another category.
Yeah, we can come back to Doom. I think
Yeah.
it's a really nice example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what are you guys? I take a look. Christian says Tetris is great. Yeah, yeah. If you got into the flow, it works great. Yeah. Columns is a great game. The music too. I never really played Columns.
I can still remember it in my head. I can hear it right now, just thinking about it.
Yeah, there was another one, Lumine or something like that for
Oh,
PlayStation.
Lumines, yes.
Yeah.
I only briefly played that, but yeah, I hear the music on that was fantastic. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was Lumines was quite a few years later, but another one which was very abstract puzzling with good music.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Christian said, what would be the first game with deep immersion in 3D for me? Yeah, yeah, would be Doom. Doom, definitive.
I will come to that, I think, on the next one. I think we've got spatial immersion coming up